Molly, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Dom?
I'm so good. It's great to have you back. I mean, you haven't been on the show before, but we had our pre-interview where I got
Yes,
to
we did.
meet you
Thank you.
guys.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
lovely to meet you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here too because you are the systems queen.
I am, and I call myself Operations and Sunshine for Good Space Plans Online.
I'm sure people listening or watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, please go over to YouTube because you can see Molly and I our actual interview, and there's nothing but sunshine coming off that smile. So that's perfect. Can I share a secret though? Something
Yeah,
that
go
most
for
people
it.
don't know is that I actually contacted Molly and Dwayna to interview Dwayna, which is Molly's mom, and you'll come to learn that. And Molly's mom is a designer. Um, but I was so impressed with you in that interview. I was like, well, you have to be a guest on my other show.
Oh, I know. We feel honored that we get to touch on both shows. That's really
Yeah,
exciting.
so cool.
I
So,
often don't get the opportunity to speak without her, so this is awesome for me.
well, I get the sense you have a lot to say. Am I
I
right?
do. I do.
Well, let's launch into it. Molly, who are you? And what the heck are you doing talking to a bunch of contractors all around the world?
That's a great question. So I'm Molly Sprague, and like I said, I take care of all things systems and operations for our family design firm. We run two design services. I'm mostly involved with Good Space Plans Online, which is an online interior design firm, and I take care of all the back end. So anything designers don't touch, I touch first, and I let them
Mm,
be creative. And I was once referenced as the elastic band holding it all together, and I liked that because it's true. I keep the walls in for the creatives to do what they do best so they
right.
can lean on the systems for our end result to be fantastic.
How did you get so systems focused?
For me, it's interesting. I reflected on that knowing I was going to speak with you, and I thought, where did this passion for systems and operations come from? Because I can't tell you the joy and relief being in a system gives me, and I know it does that for most people, but most people don't have the passion in creating them. And it
Mm,
started for me as I was actually a youth care worker, and I did children's programs, and I'd have a, one of the most full summer camps, and I'd have 30 kids at 3 to 6, and I managed to make a day work, and it was easy and fun, and it moved. And I think it was because I it was so systemized, and kids love it. And I didn't realize that when I moved into our family business in 2012, from that career choice to a family business, that I could take that knowledge and apply it to adults in a creative industry, something I never thought I could do, and get that same end result where people know the expectation, people can calm down knowing their place. And
right.
like I said, the end result reflects that.
So what do you mean the end result reflects that? Or do you guys build projects faster than most? Are you more accurate? What would I see on the other side of this, knowing that systems were working?
We are an online interior design firm. So we are
Mm,
working in people's homes, like I said, across North America without ever meeting them or stepping foot in their home.
wow,
And
so perfect for this market.
absolutely, especially right now. And I'm so thankful we're not pivoting to that right now, because it did take a lot of time to nail that system down, to
Mm,
nail that end result deliverable being a comprehensive interior design plan they implement as their time and budget allow. And that is what our deliverable is. And it takes a really strict system that we work through the client through and our team through to get there.
wow. It you're so passionate about systems. So I'm going to ask you a question about systems here. And
Go for it.
I know you have notes prepared because you're a systems person. And
Yeah,
by the
holding
way,
it always.
and you have yeah, there's always a pen in hand. I have to say this about myself. I love systems and I'm a disaster. I always feel like I'm not systematized enough. So instead of asking you, how do I build a system?
Yeah,
I'm going to ask a different level of that same question. How do I know I need a system?
that is a great question. I know for personally, when I know I need a system, is when I have an end goal in mind
Yeah.
and I'm not feeling really great about getting there. I
Oh,
might be getting there slowly, I might be frustrated and feeling a lot, but that goal just isn't getting reached. I often, that's when I turn to business coaches, and they gently remind me that when you have a goal in mind and you're not getting there, you just need a new way to get there.
right.
What you're doing isn't working, so let's create steps working backwards. And that's
Okay.
That's where I tend to start is, oh, this is my goal. I'm not getting there in the way I think I should.
Yeah.
Let's go backwards on it.
I love that go backwards thing because the people that listen to this show know my process for creating a system is actually to start at the bottom of the page and build a flowchart upwards. And it works so well. But
absolutely.
What do you do? So you're frustrated in a process. Let's say it's a simple business operations process, like collecting information from a client.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Just make that up as a simple
absolutely.
one. So what would you do? You say, oh my gosh, this isn't working the way I want. What would you actually do to build that system?
I start with, what do I want out of it? I need this information from the client. So I write the end goal always. My end goal is to have the information from the client. Who's involved? Identify the parties involved.
Yeah.
What would be the ideal system around this in a perfect world?
Right.
If no roadblocks, money's not an issue, time's not an issue, programs aren't an issue, what would it look like?
So magic and genies in a bottle everything's on the table. Yeah. Okay.
Everything's on the table. And I even to the point where it's like, well, the information would already be in my head.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that could be email. That could be our website. That could be, and I start breaking it down into micro steps to apply to what we're using now. What's true now? Not because I find I get spun out sometimes when it's like, well, we could buy this program. I just did the research. It's fantastic. Let's do it. And it's like, well, that's not true now because I need the system to work tomorrow.
Right.
So I look at the ideal, I apply it to what's true now, and I ensure it's scalable because I already have this golden goose egg I want to achieve.
Yeah.
And here's what's true now. Is what's true now going to make that magic happen eventually? Is it a scalable system?
So that scalable word I wanted to go into more. Do you make a system for everything, or do you find sometimes it's okay if there's an exception?
I do. I find it's okay because sometimes when you feel managed by a system, the system isn't serving the end goal anymore.
Right.
And that is a trouble. It's this beautiful balance between acknowledging the gaps and where a system might support those gaps, and acknowledging maybe it's more efficient to do it the way you do it. And it's that, like, it's a fine balance. That's what I find. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a fine balance. And at some point, if the exception starts to become the rule, it's time for a system.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But it's a saying that I learned in Australia, and they say it so much cooler than I do, which is to systematize the routine and humanize the exceptions.
I love that.
Right. So all you can do is systematize the things that are always going to happen. Like we always need to collect, was it customer data? We said that's a simple one.
Exactly.
Simple. But then there might be some exceptions that come up. And I don't know what those would be in that situation, but just deal with that as it comes up. I don't need a system for everything, because then I need a system for knowing which system to use. It's got to be easy.
Exactly. And you start having binders with like 19 tabs and you're like, whoa. Like the system's too complex.
Okay. So let me be honest. It sounds like you actually like binders, but 19 is too high.
I do. I'm a paper person, and it drives my team nuts as an online interior design firm, but I love paper. I love doing things by hand. So it's hard for me to shift sometimes.
So that was where I was going to go with this, is where do you keep these systems? Because the people listening to the show are saying, yeah, look, I know I need systems. I'd like to make some things, more consistent in how they happen, but we've got G Drive, we've got things in my head. People should just know what I'm doing. Or I sent an email once. How come everybody didn't read it? That whole gamut, that whole scale of things. How do you do it?
Well, and in that scale, there's so many fantastic programs being thrown at us that everybody loves. Everybody loves this. They love this. And it's really hard to weed through what's true for you. I have to say, I love starting on a Word document, a good old fashioned step 1, step 2, step 3, and printing it and putting it somewhere. For me, that is how I work, because I have an office that can pin boards and whiteboards, and then we take that and we find a way to share that with our team. So we end up, like you said, going to some type of clouded program. But we've turned to Trello for our team management,
right.
And it works for us. And we've used Basecamp and we've done all those things. So I've got to say, the step 1 would just be putting it on paper.
Yeah, get it written down.
Just get it written down, and don't stress yourself out with putting it in someplace magical at that point. Just get it out of here and on somewhere, and it immediately feels like a relief.
So this might be too much detail, but then how do you name a system so you can find it later? Like files and naming standards and all look at the smile on your face. Oh my God, it was just a question. But really, but those things are important because I could have it named differently and want to search it by different terms in the future, or somebody else will
Yeah.
use a different term. So do you have any insight on that?
I was trained by someone in systems at the time when I first stepped into this business, in good space, this business, who was very particular.
Oh.
And I used to laugh, like, I can't believe I'm changing labels because they didn't all match in the office, those kinds of little things. But I can't tell you how much it relieves. It's just this level of relief. So I did identify, it's like, oh, wow, this stuff matters.
Yeah.
Having a universal naming system for your business matters. So we do that. I actually, and we
Okay.
call them how-tos. And that's we have a binder of how-tos. And that's really is the value of your business, is that back-end binder that you could hand to a new employee and say, you can look up how to do anything in here, how to name a document, how to file a thing in our system. Like, and those are an ever-changing beast, but that upfront work of having someone type those out is what we did. And we called them all the same thing, how to blank. And they're separated into our design process.
I love it. So that consistency, I mean, you called it a universal naming system, but for systems, it's how to whatever, how to bill, how to collect, how to invoice, how to engineer, how to architect, how to design. Right. Yeah. So for anybody listening, that's the takeaway, is be consistent at that level.
Yes. And it makes it searchable. Think of something like,
my gosh,
people use like triple I's in front of it, tag things with numbers. And it's like, sometimes when you think of something like the best FAQ pages, they actually have the question you asked in your head.
Right. And it's worded the right way.
Like worded the way that someone would Google search how to. And we all do this all the time. So when you start thinking in basics for your business,
right,
it makes it easier to find.
Yeah. I hope people are listening. And this is so important for building a business. And Molly, you already said this. I'm so impressed. A business is just a collection of systems.
Yes.
That's all it is. So my son is 12. He was 11 at the time. And he hears me doing podcasts and stuff because now we're all working from home, right?
Yeah.
And he's home too. Or he was at the time. And he says, Dad, what's a business? And I was floored.
That's deep.
I know, like, that should not throw me for a loop, right? Of all the people, that should not. I was like, and so I finally, proud, I'm a dad, right? So I come back a couple minutes later. Well, here's your answer, son. Because I nailed it. He was off on other, which hockey card did he have in his collection? But I said, well, a business is a collection of systems that people pay for and the owner can make a profit from. Now, I don't know if he actually got it. Like, the heavens didn't open up and angels dried his hair with their golden wings, but he was like, yeah, okay. And then, he was fine. But I felt pretty good that I explained it in the simple terms. And then you just said the same thing. Business is just a collection of systems. And if I have broken systems, I don't have a very valuable business.
And it's not a scalable business.
Yeah.
This is the thing. You can work magic maybe with 3 people, but if you got 100 clients tomorrow, could you take what's true in your business now regarding your systems and service those clients?
Right. Yeah. You'd be in a lot of trouble.
Exactly. And I'm not saying we'd be magically okay. I'd be out posting job postings, but I can feel great that when I did have that new hire, I hand them a binder and say, learn for the next couple of days and you got this.
Yeah. Well, does your binder then say how to hire a new person, how to onboard a new person, how to set up their banking info? You've got all the how-tos already laid out, right?
Yes, we do. And embarrassing enough, I read it through a couple old how-tos, and one of them was how to show up for a client meeting as a designer. And I love this. My favorite comment was, ensure your socks don't have holes in it when you, because you're going to have to take off your shoes. I was like, wow, we got deep on that one. Like,
I'll tell you, you might think you're overdoing it, but I come through entrepreneurship through professional sales. Yeah. So I've always been the guy that sold the job or sold the engagement or sold the gig, right? And so I have to train people from time to time on how to sell. So they come with me on the meeting. Well, do you think these people would bring a pen or the contract?
Oof.
And then they're going to hear from Dom after the meeting. And
yes.
I don't have to have a pen. It's not my sale. Exactly. So I'm going to let him squirm in that chair. I'm not going to bring out my pen. It's no way. And but you might think it's obvious, but it's not obvious to everybody.
It's true. Right? And it's true. And that is the value of sometimes doing that little deeper dive, because maybe that's not the one you present to everyone, but there is value. If you thought of it and it's come up before, it's worth writing down.
Yeah. I think those of us in business have seen this before as well. When you go to rent or lease a new office space or a new industrial space and you look at the lease from the landlord and you see some weird clauses in there, like about water usage, water temperature, where water's going to flow, who's going to be in charge of water bills. When I see that on a lease, I know that landlord got burned on water at some point.
Exactly. They're so telling.
You could just tell if you look at it. I can reverse engineer and I can make a joke with the landlord or the realtor and say, hey, did this guy get burned on water before? And they'll be like, yeah, somebody ran an illegal car wash here and a detailing shop. And oh, okay, well, that makes sense. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Can we strike these clauses? And they're like, no, the landlord is very specific. They don't want to lose that money again. So my contracts and my systems will reflect the way my business has grown. And it's okay if they change over time, but you can look back on them. Like you said, I'll bet you somebody showed up with holes in their socks at a meeting.
I guarantee they did. And that would be a big no-no. And it's true. Those little things matter. And I hate to, it's not the holes in the socks, but like you said, it's taking the information you need, learning from it and doing something with it.
Right. Yeah. It's, one of the things that I hear most from owners who are trying to grow their business is they'll say, Dom, everything's in my head. I can't get it on paper, or I have never gotten it on paper. And like you just said, write it down on paper. That's the first step, because then you can train somebody else to do certain parts of your job or pieces of the job. So it might be obvious to you to show up with a tape measure to a job, but to somebody else, they don't think about it because they're not you. So you have to have in your system, before you go on a customer visit, have a tape measure and a pencil and a pad of paper. And as you're writing it, or as I'm writing it, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what kind of dum-dum needs to know this? And a couple of months later, somebody's like, hey, Dom, thanks for the reminder to bring a pad of paper. It really came in handy.
Exactly. And we do the same thing.
Come on.
We do that for our online meetings. One of the ones is like, turn off your notifications. Step one, like, because we do screen sharing meetings and those little things that you just forget. And it's great to know you have a system, and then it becomes automatic. Eventually, when you start, like when people look at a system like, ooh, that's complicated, just try it. Just give it a try.
Yeah.
Tell me where the hiccups were, because we're willing to change. That's always the thing you have to be willing is to shift. You can't, these aren't written in stone. These are for, like I said, what's true now, willing to shift.
Yeah.
And especially from feedback, that's a good system is communicated. It's like, it's communicated to you, you communicate back.
Yeah.
Especially as I'm not a designer, and I'm making systems for designers.
For designers to follow. Yeah.
Well, they sometimes don't work. It works in my head. I did it. It worked, but they're coming back at me saying, no, this isn't supportive. It was boggy. It took double the time when we tracked their time. And you're like, oh, okay. Pride's a little hurt, but that's about me. It's nothing to do with, take it away, fix it, talk about it, and shift. And I think that's really important. That's something to remember, is ask people, check in. Yeah. How did you feel about this? Is this still working? And that is, as a systems and operations, you need to do that.
I would have to agree on that one as well, because if I give a system or a process to my team and they come back to me and they argue, let's say it's a 9-point SOP, standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
And they say, Dom, step number 3 doesn't make any sense. We don't like it. Okay. So all the other steps are good. They're like, yeah, let's run with it. Okay. Because the win is the system, not that I got it right, or I didn't word it right, or they didn't like step 3. I don't care. What I care about is we have a system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to where we started this interview, which was how our design firm went virtual and it all came to life, which was through Molly's systems. Now, when I interviewed Dwayna for the other show, she's going to say it was all her.
Oh, it was all her. She came first.
Yeah.
She definitely came first in this world and did a lot more than me at the time. But let's talk about the journey. So our interior design firm started as a full service interior design firm in 2007. That was my mom's grandiose idea, was interior design is expensive. She can only serve so many people. How can we do this differently? How can we serve more? And it was about, where are the fees of full service getting bogged down? How can we streamline it? where is the client's information end and our job begin? And she really did that deep dive, and they did a lot of upfront work, just diving into the creative process, talking think tanks, like they did that work.
Mhm.
And they really created this streamlined process to interior design that they could then take care of as a creative process, stop, realize this is where the hours start really costing the client money.
Right.
They can do it if we empower them with the information they need. They need their own system to become their own project manager to implement these interior design plans, and they can do it. Clients can hire a tradesperson if they know how. They can measure furniture themselves in a store with confidence if they know the why behind that specification.
Yeah.
They can do it. And so they did a boilerplated system of, and at the time it was 2007. So then so it was literally a binder of printed paper with boilerplated information on how to hire a trades, how to read a contract. Here's a glossary of terms for design lingo that you're going to read on drawings and you might not know. Here is how high to hang art. Here's the drawing standards of lighting, heights, how to hang a chandelier. They don't. So
that attracts a certain type of client, doesn't it? A client who wants to do the how-to. So it's not for everybody, but it's
absolutely not
for the people that want to do it. They're right into it.
And it became affordable. Here was a luxury service that was an hourly rated service brought down to a flat rate by room service, and it's achievable. And everyone, and it's not even just, oh, we're so proud of our system. It's we're changing people's experiences of home, and that matters. That matters deeply. And especially now, we all know how you're feeling at home is going to play into your wellness.
Yeah.
And we want to be a part of that for people. Everyone deserves a space that they feel great in.
I want to go back and focus on a really cool question that you brought up and remind people, if you want to hear Dwayna Sprague, is it Sprague or Sprague?
Sprague.
Sprague.
Nailed it the first time, yeah.
Okay, so Dwayna Sprague, she's going to be a guest on the other show, which is called Cabinet Maker Profit System. I think most people who listen to this know I have another life talking to Cabinet Maker. But Dwayna's going to be on there, so I'll probably ask her the same question. But the question started with, how can I? Right? How can we do this differently? And for people listening, I want to remind you, all of that has been asked before in a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. It's brilliant because, and go buy the book. It's $20 and you can read it in the bathroom. I cannot give anything higher praise than that. Sorry, Molly, speaking in front of a lady, but you can read it in the bathroom. Okay. So, but Gerber talks about a lot of things in the book, but the one thing that really stood out to me is the 3 ways a business owner sees the world, and they cause tension. Like they're always pulling at our brain. And the first way that we see the world is as the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur, and you guys know when you're in entrepreneur mode, when you're asking questions. And those questions start with, how can I do this? Or what if we did something differently? You know, the manager is the other viewpoint, that's measurement. And then the technician is the person, in your case, who's actually doing the design or talking to the clients. But it all starts with thinking about the big thinks.
Yeah.
Right? And that comes from the E-Myth. So I'm so glad to hear you guys did that.
Yeah. And then my mom had the vision of taking it online. And that was even before she could take it online. That wasn't a thing. Yeah. That wasn't a thing at the time, because that was 2014. And things were starting to pop up. Yeah, e-commerce was a complete thing, but creating our own proprietary software around our own interior design process really wasn't a thing. Oh my gosh. We did that. That's what so at the time, and we own our own proprietary software around our own process. And we now do it across North America.
So people can reinvent their business, is what you're saying. You can reinvent your business if you want to. If you,
like you said, if you ask the right question that pertains to your own business and your own end goal, you can get there.
Yeah. So cool. And did you have a system for going online?
Yeah, a very big system, and honestly, a system that was way over my head. And it's like I said, you have to be willing to ever develop. You can't let a system go stale. So our tech, always in new developments, which is exciting. And especially in this world, there's so many options, and there's so much knowledge. Yeah. So talk to those people, talk to Dom, talk to people, learn.
Yeah. Now more than ever, we need to use experts.
Absolutely. And I love, like, I will never know it all. And it's that irritating feeling, but the best place to be in. And I hired someone once as a personal help. And one time we were working on a new program. We learned QuickBooks Online. We went from QuickBooks to the online program.
Right. Yeah.
And
It's different.
it's different. It's a
You would
shift.
think it's the same thing, but it's different.
Totally. And the person I was working with, I remember we were working it out. We were thinking, let's figure it out how we're going to do this. And she said, man, I hate learning new things. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, we're going to time out right here. I was like, this is a huge opportunity, because you can't feel that way. You can feel that way, but you have to just let it ride like that. You got to try to push that ego down and really open up to the, like, it's super exciting learning new things. It's challenging, and challenging doesn't mean bad. Challenging means new, and it's but it's funny that in that moment, I remember thinking, like, I felt that way too, but you've got to try to, like,
change it,
shift. Yeah. You can't be in that place of, because there's, like you said, so many people out there, and just ask them the questions and they'll share their knowledge.
When I'm working with somebody who's teaching me something new, because I like to make jokes, I will often say, I've learned more difficult things. I just can't remember what they are. Usually it takes people a second. They're like, what? Well, what is he talking? What do you mean? And then they know I'm just screwing with them, but so did you had some notes written down today that you wanted to cover off, because you have a system. So what if I just back right up and ask you to lead this part? Tell me some of the things that you really wanted to share with our guests that you thought were important.
For us, and I'd like to speak from the interior design world, just because that's the world I'm in right now with our system. But it's the accuracy in our world of our systems. We're incredibly dependent on accuracy. So people ask, how could you possibly do this being interior design without being in someone's home? And I always say back to someone, do you know people meet their life partners online now? Do you know people, buy their entire wardrobe online? Did you know developments locally are being designed by, incredibly gifted engineers in other countries? Yeah. They don't even go here. Like, there's so much power in relying and being confident in a system, and the end result will really serve it, like serve your end goal. So we've done that, and there's pillars to that system that we can't waver on. So for our interior design plans to be what they are, we have to have accurate drawings and measurements from our client. And on designers go, whoa, you're relying on clients to take measurements? That's insane. No, not when you've tried and tested how to measure your home package and it works. Right. And not when you've empowered them with fantastic tools if they feel so fit to buy a laser measure. Like, you can't just go, no, they can't do that.
Yeah, they can.
Say, they can. Like, if they can't, how can they?
Oh, another entrepreneur question. And I'm going to challenge everybody listening here. If you think people can't learn to do something, please remember that at some point you did.
Exactly.
Right? And so you might say, well, how does somebody measure their fence accurately, and how can I trust them? Well, build a system so that they can measure their yard accurately in a fence, and then you can do an estimate without even having to drive to their job site.
Exactly. It's if you empower them with a system that they can use that supports your internal system, we're all good. And it's messy initially, and it's clunky, and it's sometimes you find yourself apologizing when you first implement something new, and you're like, but just be honest. People like when you're saying, this is new, give us feedback. How did this feel?
Right.
You hated it. Can you tell us? Because we don't want someone else to be hating it too. And how can we do it better at the end? And it's a great question. And most people are saying, oh, it's great. It's great. But you know what would have helped? And then you got to listen, and you got to shift.
Yeah.
And that's something in our design process we're incredibly passionate about is hearing how we did from clients. And rarely do we have them turn back and say, we hated this, because usually they know they hate doing it themselves in the first leg of our engagement. And we have a full money back guarantee. So this process doesn't work for you. And it, like you said, it's not for everyone, but it's
But
for a lot of people now. Like
yeah.
people are feeling empowered. It's the world is changing in interior design. We all know it. We all feel it. And it's not just what's going on in the world now.
Hey, the
And
world's changing for everything, for all industries.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so it sounds to me like your company is, and they say, oh, we embrace change, but it sounds like you guys really are looking for ways to change. You're an evolving company. You're not saying we're an interior design firm. We design great interiors and that's all we do. You're not
No.
gray. You're like very vibrant and changing and evolving.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's from the creatives that we work with too. We listen to our designers.
Mm.
How do they want to work? And a lot of them don't want to run a business right now. So they want to just be designers. And that's a tough thing to do when you're like, well, you graduated from design school, but you got to run a business. It's like,
Oh,
they get set up very well for
do you
that.
know how many people get stuck in that? Like dentists and
Yeah,
chiropractors and veterinarians. They went to veterinarian school, not business school. And I have to
exactly.
say, thank God for that, because it keeps people like me employed. When a
Exactly.
when a veterinarian doesn't know how to run a vet practice, they call people like me, right? Because
Exactly. It keeps business coaches working.
I know, I want them to know all about dogs' toes. They should take those electives in schools and not business. Um,
Exactly.
so
That's
how do
that's
you,
what we do. We
yeah,
created a structure for those creatives.
you created a structure for those people. So that actually leads to another question. I didn't realize we were going to go here, but how do you work with these subcontractors, people who are designers for you? Because I've been talking to this audience for a long time about using other providers of contract work. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying like a subcontract electrician or drywaller. I mean like through Upwork, where you can get
Yeah.
somebody to do graphics and art and layout and maybe making PDFs or bookkeeping. How do you work well with subcontractors?
Good contracts. Is that upfront work around really being clear what everyone's expectation is. Um, Talking to people, like getting out there to networking events and really talking to other designers.
Hmm.
And honestly, we love empowering women in business. So we love really reaching out to women's networks and seeing, and a lot of these designers are new moms or new parents, and they want to keep doing what they're doing and they're what they're passionate about, but they don't have a place to do that.
Mm.
So going project by project and really giving people an opportunity and connecting. Just
So networking, isn't that a bit tough right now with mask rules and COVID? I mean, how do you network?
absolutely. So I'm a part of BNI.
Oh, no
So
way.
yeah, so that's where
So
I network in the BNI world, which
can
is
you explain what BNI is? Do you have a second to do
sure.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So BNI is a global referring network. And
Ah,
so you join a chapter. Each chapter has one seat per profession. So you're not elbows up fighting for it against the competition, which is really a relief. And the expectation is you pass business to one another. And BNI is fantastic because they have many teams and chapters.
hmm.
And I was lucky enough to join a chapter that had a fantastic home power team. We got a plumber, we got a contractor, we got a mortgage broker, we've got a fantastic electrician. I'm a
Yeah.
little biased because my fiance works for him and
Oh.
he's one of his journeymen, but I think they're fantastic. So that's where I've chosen to settle our referral kind of passing. And I can't tell you how much our business has thrived in it. And
Really?
yeah, and I think it is because the reflection on the chapter itself, in the sense of we have a lot of referral partners.
Yeah.
So if it was something you're interested in, I highly recommend doing that hunting to make sure it's a chapter for your business.
How does somebody find BN? Oh, so BNI stands for Business Networking International, I
Yeah,
think.
international. That's correct.
And it's so BN, it must be BNI.com or so. I don't know. You
Yeah,
tell me.
you can check out bni.com.
Yeah.
They're actually interesting. They're the largest clients of Zoom because when they pivoted from in-person meetings
Oh, I was
to
going to ask you, how do you guys meet? Yeah, because you can't
yeah,
meet face to face.
no, we meet on Zoom, and I'm going to pump up BNI admin because they did that within a week and a half. We were meeting on Zoom from in person using their full system that they use. And
Oh, cool.
talk about a system, like, man, they're killing, BNI's killing it because there's a way to run a meeting and there's literally a script I read as the president of our chapter. So it's awesome. And it's if you find the chapter that's magic for your business, it's magic.
Yeah. So would you recommend, because everybody listening to the show is a trades pro and they own a trades business,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are in family businesses like you guys. is that the place you should go if you're looking for new plumbing, electrical, construction work?
I would recommend it just because what's true for my business, it worked.
Right.
I have heard those stories of like, I found a chapter that didn't fit, but then I found a chapter that was magic. And you're like,
Oh,
so
okay.
it takes that little bit of like, doing your due diligence on what's right for you and asking people. I asked a lot of questions before I joined. I took advantage of you can attend 2 meetings before you join.
Right.
So I took advantage of that, and I really asked those like, why BNI? How much money did you actually get? And they threw out a lot of like fantastic sounding numbers when you first join. We're a $3 million chapter, and your average value of a seat. And I asked like, how much of that is real?
Right.
And when I get actually shown referral slips, and then within my first year, I closed $30,000 of closed business because of BNI.
Really?
Yeah.
Straight from BNI referrals?
Straight from BNI referrals. That was 4 large projects.
Wow. And so I would consider design to be a very thin sliver of the construction industry. And you were able to find that, and that came through the other people, not just the plumber and the electrician, but other people around the.
Yeah. Because you get to shine your business. So you get to have a new ask every week. And the best way, they always say, for other people to start selling your business for you is to start servicing those members. So I often give offers to clients, our members, so they can experience our business, and they become a 10 times better salesperson when they say, Molly helped me out with blank. It was a fantastic experience.
Right.
And that's why I got a free chiro appointment. That's why I got free acupuncture, because I now have sent 4 friends to the chiro, because you start sharing, and it's a giver's gain. It's the whole mentality.
Giver's gain.
Giver's gain is their motto, and I radically align with that. I love helping people. They're just like you, Dom. You're like, I could introduce you to so-and-so, or you should come and talk about. It's that points of connection.
Yeah.
And it really reflects back on you, especially if that's just the kind of person you are. So
yeah, so everything that you talk about, first, you're energetic as heck. So first of all.
Hence the sunshine.
Yeah. But also there's systems and there's thought behind everything you're doing. So you're really not going through every day with drudgery. You're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And we got a system and a process. And I can add value here and I can gain value there. I think those are really valuable. So for the people listening, I really want you to take away from Molly, first, the energy, because if you can't get the energy from Molly, you ain't getting it from anybody. But the systems and the way that you approach these, I'll call it a challenge, and just something in front of you, and you just pick it apart piece by piece. It sounds like you did the same with BNI.
I did, and I was fun, honestly. Because it's a huge network, and they have a system, and I'm so impressed with the technology they've created around their systems, and even if that alone to experience is beneficial, because you just see here's this global network, and as in the trade industry kind of thing, if I do an online project for someone in Toronto, and they say, Molly, I don't have a contractor. My friend said so-and-so, they're not doing this size project. Who do you think I could use? I go onto my BNI Global Network website. I search contractor Toronto, and then, 5 come up. I shoot them an email through our BNI, and I say, look, is this the kind of project you take? They say, great referral. I'll talk to them tomorrow.
Wow. Okay. So it's bigger than just
100%. If someone in Seattle, all the way down to Texas, down to India, it's incredible the size of the network you've joined. And once you join, it's none of those weird things that you're like, oh, BNI, and it starts popping up everywhere in your life. And
it's the secret decoder ring. It's this club that everybody's in.
It totally is. So and I'm happy I'm in it, honestly. So it's worked for me. And like I said, do your due diligence and figure out if it works for you. And I align with their values. So that works too.
Yeah. Well, things do have to align with your values, right?
Absolutely.
So let's go to values for a second. Maybe this is where we'll start to wind things down. But were you at the business when Dwayna started it?
I was graduating high school.
Oh, okay.
So I actually do remember. So 2007, I graduated high school, and that's when she started doing the think tank. I remembered when they came up with the name Good Space.
Oh.
And I remembered her saying, everyone at the think tank loved it. And I remember her telling me about think tanks. I was like, that's a thing?
Yeah.
And she's yeah. You remember you did that for your uncle because he worked at a marketing thing. And I remember trying makeup as a kid. I'm like, oh yeah. And so she said, that's what we did. We talked to people and how do they feel about home and what would help them? And they really came up with a really detailed values map and what our pillars of our business in regards to how we want to treat people,
Yeah.
what are our policies, how we hire. So really creating
You built
that
the
up
business
front.
on paper before the business even started.
Exactly. So they did that. So when it exploded for them, and it came at a time, 2007, like, shortly after that was not really great for a lot of businesses.
No, 2008 was very bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here they came up with a business that survived because they were serving this middle ground of people who still wanted their home to feel good, but they couldn't afford this, but they could do this.
Right.
And it was just this magic. They came in at a really great time with a really great idea. And that idea has never stopped being great. And we're seeing people doing it themselves now. And we see e-design pop up all over the place. We see online interior design. And I've got to say, I'm really incredibly proud of my mom for being on the forefront of that.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And people thought she was crazy. And when someone thinks you're crazy, it's the best when you prove them wrong.
Unless you're actually crazy.
Unless you're actually
crazy.
In that sense, yeah.
So when you first joined the company, what was the first system that you put in place? Do you remember that?
I remember the first system I learned was how to answer the phone properly. And it was very.
Oh my gosh. Is that not ever the most important thing?
I remember laughing because I was like, oh my God, I took it. And at the time I wasn't taking it seriously enough because I just graduated university. I was like, I don't want to work in childcare anymore. So I'll answer phones for my mom. And I was labeling, like I said, relabeling things in the office. And it wasn't until the designer said to me, I'm getting irritated with the calls. And here's my job, was answering phones. And I need a better system around it. Like I keep getting interrupted by trades. It's messing with my time tracking. I can't just get like a project done in a chunk. And when you start looking at your team's time tracking and it's in intervals of 15 minutes and you're not seeing that 3 hours of work done,
they can't concentrate. Yeah.
You're getting interrupted. So what can we do? So I don't think it was me, but at the time we all riffed on, what if we just got a door to the studio? And when the door to the studio, there's a sliding glass door to divide our space.
That was your system?
When the door is closed, no phones. You take messages. And when the door is open, it means studio time is flexible. And that was like, oh yeah. So we got a door and it worked well. And then the door became.
I'm laughing that was the system, but sometimes it's that simple.
It was simple. I was like, I can't see you. I can't bug you out of sight, out of mind. No, delivery people are going to come in and hand you samples. It's a door. It's like a visual blocker to protect you. And then if the door became an issue, so then we needed a new system. So then it was just like, well, let's just create a times, and we let clients know these are the times your designers are available via phone. And it was just something so simple, but it ended up really increasing profitability and efficiency and moods in the office.
I need to share two funny stories about that, but that is the most fantastic example. So one of them, my buddy owned a restaurant, and the way that the bathroom door opened, you could see too much in the men's room when the door opened. And so that was no good. And when I say too much, a lot you could see. And so my wife and I were sitting in his restaurant, and I'm like, hey, bud, did you know I could see right in the bathroom? He's like, well, that's why this table's always available. And I said, well, you could change it. Just flip the door around. And it was like, flip the door around? So that's the first one. And the second one is another friend of mine owns a very, very big tow truck company. And you might think, okay, what the heck does that have to do with anything? But when people come into a tow truck company, their car has just been towed. They're generally not in a good mood.
Yeah.
Like 100% of the time. And usually when you go into a tow truck company, it's dingy. It's an old trailer and it's brown wood. It
is always a trailer. Why is it always a trailer?
Well, there you go. So he made a beautiful entryway, and as people comes in, he gives them a bottle of water. But I thought the most brilliant thing he did was there's a wall of mirrors behind the receptionist.
Oh my God.
Because I wanted those crazy people to see themselves losing it. He goes, and they calm down right away. When they see themselves yelling. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's I love that. I love that. That's so
and that's design, right? I guess both of those are design element stories.
But the design, it's reliant on, someone understanding the system of human reaction and human nature. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
And so for us in trades, we have to ask ourselves that same question. You make a, okay, funny story, Dom, and great story, Molly. That's awesome. But how are you going to put it in place is my question. Open question to all the listeners. How are you going to put that in place in your plumbing company, in your roofing company, in your mold remediation company, in your general contracting company? How are you going to think about the customer and the situation and try to come up with situations that solve it and put a system in place? One system today, another system next week. And by the end of the year, you'll have 52 great systems in place. And each of those systems is like a piston, and it's running your business a little better every time. So I guess that's our takeaway message.
Yeah. And my big takeaway is apply that system to values you've established in your business that mean something to you. And when you have that foundation and a value, you attract the clients you want.
Oh my gosh, we could have you back just to talk about that.
For me. So I just like, I'm passionate that when I stepped into a system at Good Space at the time, it was a hierarchical system. Designers at top, front desk girl at the bottom. I knew my place. And there was this like elusive kind of grandiose feeling. And I was less important is initially how I felt at the time. And I didn't like that.
No.
I knew I wasn't less important because if I didn't show up, I knew they couldn't get their job done. Right. So I knew my value at the time, and I flipped it. And I was very proud of that. Into 2014-ish, 2016-ish, between those years, my mom and I did a big value hunt and like really like got down to the nitty gritty of what do we believe in and how can we make that our like just mantra in our business. And so we flipped everything and we're now on a linear system. No one's more important than the last person doing their job. And we're all the same. And it really, at the time, we lost people because it didn't fit for them.
As you do.
And you're willing to say, we're okay with that. I mean, it felt sad and things happened, but when we were very rooted in what we believe in, and we attract that kind of contractor, we attract that type of sub-trade, we attract that type of other designer who wants to work with us. And we weed through the stuff that just, they're not our client. They're not our, attitude.
Yeah.
And it feels good. It's not this scarcity feeling. It's this abundant feeling.
My goodness. You guys sound like you're channeling me. And we don't, just to be clear to everybody on the line, we don't work together, but you sound like you do. So that's great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. It shows that we radically align with values. That's
why
why I creeped out your house too, by the way, Dom.
Oh, did you? You figured out where I live?
Yeah, I had to as an interior design firm, and he was chatting about his heritage home. We had to see it, and it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes a lot of work, those heritage homes.
No, it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Molly, if somebody wants to get in touch with you or find out more about what you guys do, heard you on the show, they know your attitude, and they get a sense of how you guys approach the world, how would they find you?
So you can come reach us at goodspace.com or goodspaceplansonline.com. We own every variation of it. So type Goodspace online and you'll find us, or shoot me an email to hello@mygoodspace.com. And if you're approaching a renovation without a plan, you're a builder who might need some type of plans to follow. Everyone has those clients who are like, what do you think? What do you think? And you're like, I'm a plumber. I think I should do my job. So come to us, reach out. It doesn't matter how big, small, whatever size.
I was going to say, would it be, can you guys do a bathroom or
Absolutely.
A master bedroom or a house? Like you can do.
We do it all. So we can do a new build. We can do your bathroom, and we can do maybe your living room, even if you want to keep some of the stuff, but it's frustrating and you're not feeling great at home right now. Just talk to, and maybe even if you just want someone to talk to about it, we want to talk to you. We care. We genuinely.
You can tell you guys care. I really can.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Molly, thank you so much. You delivered on the sunshine.
Thank you.
And you delivered on the operations. And it's a nice day. I know it's been raining.
Helped us out for the sunshine today.
Yeah. All right, Molly, thank you so much. And for people that want to listen to the other side of this story.
Yes.
We're going to have Dwayna as a guest on the other podcast. So for those of you who don't listen to the other podcast, it's called Cabinet Maker Profit System. And I'm sure you'll love that show as well. So thanks, Molly. Great talking to you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Have a great day.
Bye.